What should I know about Veritasium?
It was under the blood moon. I felt my heart come. I held you in this strange light, a place where shadows.
So basically, I'm looking to tie the entire world to Veritasium.
On his way out of the SEC, former Chairman Jay Clayton indicated that Bitcoin and Ethereum are not securities. He said this as he was transitioning into private practice where he would advise large crypto projects. His rationale goes back to the Howey test, which states that cryptocurrencies are designed to be decentralized, so like commodities, don't produce a return from a common enterprise. Meanwhile, the SEC is prosecuting a multi-year lawsuit against Ripple at the current time. The mission of the SEC on its website states the SEC strives to promote and protect investors, maintain fair and orderly, efficient markets. The SEC strives to promote a market environment that is worthy of the public's trust. It seems that regulatory agencies in the US particularly have gotten into the business of picking winners and losers. There may even be an argument that the former SEC Director Clayton has profited off of some of his decisions while serving at the SEC. Does it seem a little hypocritical that some projects like Bitcoin and Ethereum get a pass while other projects which are rolled out in a similar manner are prosecuted?
Okay, so for those who don't know, I have to give my disclaimer. I'm not a big fan of the SEC's behavior around crypto. The big suits that they have are being prosecuted by the same prosecutor who actually came after me, my family, my businesses, and did a lot of damage. So I am not unbiased.
Understood.
I don't feel that's synonymous with being non-objective, though. I am very objective, but I'm not unbiased. So with that being said, it seems quite obvious that picking winners and losers. Quite obvious. To me, an example is the decentralization argument. Is that what you mentioned? The decentralization argument of Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Yeah, it goes back to the Howey test. Clayton stated in a presser and released the statement to the public that because Ethereum and Bitcoin passed the Howey test, which states that cryptocurrencies are designed to be decentralized. So like commodities, he compared them exactly to commodities. They don't produce a return from a common enterprise. That's what his rationale behind stating that Bitcoin and Ethereum are not securities. But, they prosecute Veritasium, they prosecute XRP, they prosecute Telegram. I mean, there's plenty of stories where they prosecute projects that were rolled out in the same manner. For example, Ethereum had a very long IDO. Ethereum had, I think, a year-long IDO, similar to Veritasium, but Veritasium had a much shorter distribution time frame. So there's the rub. Why are they picking winners and losers?
Well, Ethereum is a software project, correct?
Correct.
Who writes the software?
Developers like Vitalik Buterin.
Okay. And through a foundation. Is that not a common enterprise, the foundation?
Seems like a common enterprise to me.
The collection of developers is a common enterprise. So if they were to stop writing software, would the buyers of Ethereum take a financial or capital loss?
I would say yes.
That sort of flies in the face of the logic. Nothing against Ethereum. Big fan of Ethereum, actually.
Same
but,
here.
What rule applies to one needs to apply to many, and what rule applies to many needs to apply to one.
Agreed.
The Bitcoin has a common enterprise in the Bitcoin Foundation. Okay, the Bitcoin core group of developers. Okay, out of which they maintain a Bitcoin and upgrade the Bitcoin code. And through that upgrading, Bitcoin has went from pennies, fractions of a penny, to now $58,000. If the Bitcoin core group of developers, loosely termed or defined by me as a common enterprise, were to stop developing Bitcoin, do you think that the buyers of Bitcoin would take a capital loss?
100%.
Sort of flies in the face of the logic.
It
I'm not
does.
saying that Bitcoin or Ethereum are securities, but I'm saying whatever logic you apply to one, apply to all. I personally don't think Bitcoin's a security at all. I think it's a commodity.
Exactly.
Is Ethereum a security? As defined by Mr. Clayton and et al. I'm not going to go into names. Probably so in the very beginning. No, I don't think so. I think it's obviously a commodity. But I also thought the same of very many other projects. One of I'm very dear to, but I'm not going to mention that name. The very, very handsome founder, may I add, though.
Some might agree.
So, these picking winners and losers, in my opinion, is blatant, is beyond obvious. And it works to the detriment of the US by far.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you, and most people who say that the SEC's behavior or government's behavior works to the detriment of the US are saying it anecdotally. I can prove it.
Right.
One of those companies they went after was VeriDAO and myself personally. Okay. Allegations of a lot of, in my opinion, and I'm biased, right? Nasty allegations. Okay. Excluded me from certain markets, right? As a consequence. No adjudication, okay? No admittance or denial of the allegations. But at the end of the day, I did have to sign some papers, etc. Okay. Bitcoin is by far the largest value in terms of multiplying actual token times price of the crypto assets. Okay. With Ethereum being number 2. Okay. Bitcoin's value and Ethereum and most of these crypto assets, they have what I would call a layer valuation methodology, the way I would evaluate. You have technical utility value from here to there. You have global macro value, okay, from here to there. Then you have speculative value on top of it, okay? Initially, Bitcoin was a phenomenal idea. The guy was a genius, or the people, or the girl, the companies, whoever did it, absolute genius, okay? Its utility value, potential utility value was off the charts, but it was just a white paper. Implemented in code, became even stronger. Over time, it was a majority of the value of Bitcoin's price, 100% of it, until speculators came in, financial speculators, and then they increased the speculative value. This is not a good or a bad thing. It's just basically facts.
It's just how it happens. Yeah.
Right. But Bitcoin's utility value, right, technical utility value, was still the vast majority until they stopped developing it at the rate that they historically did, which is why Vitalik Buterin came in and suggested, and others, he wasn't the only one, and suggested that they create a full Turing scripting language for Bitcoin to allow for more flexibility, which is what I think Satoshi Nakamoto initially intended, if you read through the white paper, with Bitcoin script and smart contracts, and, the natural extension. The Bitcoin core group, okay, the Bitcoin Foundation said, no, I'm an enterprise. I'm an enterprise.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They said no. So Vitalik went, raised funding, okay, potential security, raised funding, developed his own version, the progeny of Bitcoin, right, which is basically Bitcoin plus a virtual machine that can run full Turing scripts. Full Turing means a more complex programming language versus a non-Turing or simple script, which Bitcoin uses a flat script. And then the rest is recent history, okay? And I say recent because there are no crypto experts. Satoshi himself only published the idea in 2008, and that's the guy that created it. So, and it's only 2021. So there are no old school experts in crypto.
Right.
Okay, so Ethereum went in a different direction. Ethereum has more utilitarian value and more use, much more velocity than Bitcoin. Everybody's ignoring that. Bitcoin maximalists don't want to hear it. This is simple math and observation. Okay. Bitcoin has more mind share. Okay. Not market share, but more mind share. And at least for right now, a higher propensity for global macroeconomic value.
Right.
But everything above that, Bitcoin right now is mostly speculative value.
Right.
Okay. Ethereum is mostly utilitarian value. Now I'm going to land my plane soon. So
Sure.
the reason or the cause for the speculative value to be less of the component of Bitcoin's value can come from two things. Global macroeconomic value or macroeconomic value can increase, like the adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador. It's a big deal.
And possibly Brazil.
Right. If it catches on, that's what if it catches on, that global I keep saying global, that macroeconomic factor increases more and more and more. So that's higher Bitcoin value or higher Bitcoin price, point number one. Point number two is utility value, right? Which is more straightforward and has a higher probability of increasing the price more. Okay. Bitcoin is slow, right? It's cumbersome. When it gets busy, the fees are high. But things like the liquid sidechain or the Lightning Network put significantly more utility and utilitarian value in Bitcoin, meaning you can jack the price up a lot and it can be justified fundamentally.
Right.
Okay. Somebody actually patented the processes, the systems, the device, and the methods, right, for that utility value.
That must have been one smart fellow.
Just an observing killer. He's actually not that bright, but he did patent it early. Okay. Yeah. And he was attacked by the SEC. He's from America. He's American, lives in the US. He lives walking distance, a long walk, but walking distance from the SEC's offices. He was attacked from the SEC and forbidden to do business in certain aspects of crypto and securities, or I don't even know, certain aspects of the business in the US. So the patent holder of the IP rights was told he had to leave the country to do business, which means I can guarantee you it is now more expensive to use that IP in the US than it is to use it outside the US. Okay.
So you're telling me it's a big club and you're not in it?
I'm saying it's a big club. That person's not in it, but that person owns the deed to the clubhouse.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen. I'd agree with that.
So what this enforcement action did was it made the Lightning Network more expensive to use in the US than everywhere else in the world, despite the fact it's a US invention, it's a US product, the IP was formed in the US. Okay?
So we're pushing the best technology that we have offshore, is what you're saying.
Right. And it's provable. I can point to a patent, point to the claims, you can point to the Lightning Network code at the protocol level. So it's impossible to get around at the protocol level. So anybody who writes or uses anything on top of the protocol would be infringing. That is one example of many. Another example, look at Ripple, right? The same prosecuting team went after Ripple, okay? In Japan, where one of these patents are from, okay, everything is going well. Ripple is tearing things up in Japan, okay? The Japanese government is very clear on regulation. They don't seem to be picking winners and losers arbitrarily or not. The US doesn't seem to have this issue. The US does seem to have these issues. So the economic activity is gravitating to Japan. And it's not like Ripple is not capable of doing business in the US, but because of the prosecution, which Ripple is saying is devoid of fair notice, but I'm not going to get into that right or wrong because I have to be careful what I say.
Sure.
You can guess what side I'm rooting for, though.
You and me both.
Right? This action is driving all that expertise, all that economic activity offshore. The Japanese are loving what's going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's putting them in a better position, in my opinion.
No matter all the economic competitors of the US are on the SEC side because it benefits them. Okay. And let's suppose the SEC loses against Ripple,
Mhm.
right? They slow Ripple down. And Ripple's most ingenious products, such as on-demand liquidity,
Mhm.
right, which are very interesting. Guess what?
It infringes
That
on your IP.
Right, that IP is owned by someone who has been chased out of the U.S.
Wow.
Who
It's just
chased them out of the
incredible. Just incredible. Yeah, the
And-
SEC did.
And then you have Ripple and the users of Ripple's products. These are not typical mom and pop entities. American Express, MasterCard, Visa, Dow Securities, Matsushita Bank, SBI. Okay. It will be, and I can tell you, more expensive to use that in the US than it is in certain places offshore, as long as jurisdictions are tripped. Okay. I'm not going to tell you, what patents I plan to get and plan not to get, but what's already been delivered. Okay. I can tell you where it would be more expensive to use it and where it won't be more expensive.
So let me give you go ahead.
Okay. And it's very, very difficult to avoid jurisdiction. Or it's much more difficult to avoid jurisdiction than most people think.
Mhm.
The US says, let's use something like the Justice Department or FinCEN, et cetera, other US regulatory bodies. They say that if you use a bank that uses US dollars, the US has jurisdiction over you. Okay.
Wow.
If you use a server that is on US soil or in US jurisdiction, the US has jurisdiction over you. Just using a server. The internet is basically a large decentralized network.
Mhm.
So it's very difficult to avoid using a server in the US if you use something that's pinging and hopping from bit to bit. Chances are it's going to hit the US. Let's turn that logic around. I get a patent in first, second, third largest economic jurisdiction in the world, right? You say, well, I'm not going to do business there. And you send a transaction through the blockchain, right? One of the nodes in that blockchain, it's that jurisdiction. That jurisdiction now has jurisdiction over you.
Wow.
How do you avoid going through China or Great Britain or the EU or Japan? Some transactions you can if you know what you're doing. Most people can't. Most companies can't. And if you do, then you're restricting yourself and you become more centralized. For every jurisdiction that I would get a patent on, the more centralized you have to be.
Interesting.
Which defeats the entire purpose of using a decentralized network. This is all due to, in my opinion, trying to pick winners and losers. But again, I'm biased. Okay, you were saying.
So it sounds like the technology that you own the IP for has the possibility to add value to systems like the Lightning Network, like the XRP on-demand liquidity. Does your technology go that far? Does it help and add value to these systems? Drive the price down, make it more usable, more mass adoption friendly?
Well, let me start with everything that I said today. I should have said this in the beginning. It should be common sense, but I'm going to give a disclaimer.
Sure.
Okay. Everything that comes out of my mouth is my opinion. Okay. I want you to consider it my opinion for the mere fact that I said it. So it's my opinion. So it's not legal advice. It's not technical advice. It's not financial advice. It's just what Reggie thinks. Okay. So the way I see the IP is I came up with the idea that was basically the Lightning Network, or very similar, back in 2013, 2014. We filed patent protection. Patents are starting to be granted. We have one granted in a very powerful area. And it basically, someone else came up with a similar idea, developed it, but they developed it based upon my IP. So it's not a matter of whether they can make it better or not. It's a matter of it belonging to me. Okay. Now, do I think I can improve upon it? Immensely. I really do.
Awesome.
Okay. Same thing with Ripple's technology. It's not a matter of whether my technology can make it better or not. It's that Ripple built a very elegant product. I've been going through all this stuff in detail. So
I'm sure.
Hats off to Ripple, hats off to the Lightning Network author as well. Not necessarily that simple, but very elegant. Well done. Okay. But it's done based upon my intellectual property. Okay. Can I make the Ripple products better? In my opinion, absolutely. You know, and I don't say have to make it better. I'll gladly work with Ripple. Now, Ripple's a for-profit company. Okay. I'll
Right.
gladly work with them and all their clients. And, you know, I can add ideas or they can simply license IP and go off on their business. Okay. Same thing, not the same thing with Lightning Network, because Lightning Network is a protocol.
Mhm.
Okay. And now people build on top of that protocol, such as Strike. It's a company called Strike. CEO is a very young guy, but very charismatic, though.
I've seen
I like
him. He's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, very charismatic. Funny too. So he has a for-profit company that builds products based upon the protocol.
Mm.
Okay. And he would be the one who I would make a deal with or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you can't make a deal with the protocol. But the protocol itself is based, in my opinion, upon my IP. Now, you can't avoid using my IP if you use the protocol.
Right. Right.
Like if
It's
I had,
pervasive. Yeah.
right.